Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the street, thinking they're worthless bits of copper not even worth bending down for. But what if I told you that a simple 1981-cent coin from the USA could be worth an absolutely staggering $38 million? Yes, you heard that right. $38 million for a penny that most people wouldn't give a second glance. This isn't some fairy tale or internet myth. This is the real world of numismatics, where tiny mistakes, historical accidents, and perfect preservation can transform ordinary pocket change into life-changing fortunes. The 1980 penny sits innocently in circulation, looking exactly like billions of other pennies. But hidden among those common coins are specimens so rare and so valuable that collectors around the world would empty their bank accounts just for a chance to own one. Before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny worth more than most people's dream homes, let me tell you something that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. This 1980 penny isn't the only hidden treasure we're uncovering today, because coming up next, we have another penny from 1993 that will absolutely blow your mind with its value, and trust me, you won't believe what happened at the mint that year to create such an extraordinary coin. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for in your own change, and you might just discover you're sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. Now, let's talk about why the 1981-cent coin has reached such astronomical values in the collector's market. The year 1980 was a transitional period in American coinage history, coming right on the heels of the 1979 energy crisis and significant changes in minting practices at the United States Mint. During this year, the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mint facilities were all producing pennies, but what many people don't realize is that during this production run, several catastrophic errors occurred that created some of the most sought-after error coins in existence. The most valuable 1980 pennies are those struck on wrong planchets. Imagine a penny accidentally struck on a dime planchet, or even more incredibly, on a quarter planchet. These errors happen when planchets from different denominations get mixed up in the production process, and when a penny die strikes a planchet meant for a completely different coin, you get a mint error that collectors go absolutely crazy for. But the errors don't stop there. Some 1980 pennies were struck with double dies, meaning the design was stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubled image that's visible to the naked eye, particularly on the date and the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." These double die varieties are graded based on how prominent the doubling is, with the most dramatic examples fetching prices that would make your jaw drop. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a coin that shows only part of the design with a blank crescent on one side. The more off-center the strike, and the more of the date that remains visible, the more valuable the coin becomes. Collectors particularly prize off-center errors that are between 10% and 50% off-center with a full date showing, as these represent the perfect balance between dramatic error and identifiability. The 1980 AD penny from the Denver Mint has its own special place in error coin history, with several known examples of what's called a repunched mint mark, where the D mint mark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a ghostly doubled or even tripled appearance of the letter D. These repunched mint mark varieties require magnification to see clearly, but once you know what you're looking for, they're unmistakable, and they add significant premium value to what would otherwise be a common penny. Meanwhile, the 1980 US-proof penny from San Francisco, which was only made for collector sets and never released into circulation, has its own error varieties that command premium prices. including proof pennies struck on bronze planchets instead of the copper-plated zinc planchets that became standard later, creating a weight and composition anomaly that serious collectors can detect immediately. But here's where things get really interesting, and remember, we still have that incredible 1993 penny waiting for us, which has its own mind-blowing story that you absolutely need to hear. The preservation and condition of these 1980-era pennies is absolutely critical to their value. A coin in poor condition might be worth a few $100s if it has a good error, but that exact same error on a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition with no wear, scratches, or environmental damage could be worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars more. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate these coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, and error coins that achieve grades of MS65 or higher in uncirculated condition are the ones that bring the really serious money at auction. The story of how these error coins escape the mint is fascinating in itself. The United States Mint has quality control procedures designed to catch errors before coins enter circulation, with multiple inspection points throughout the production process where coins are examined and errors are supposed to be pulled and destroyed. However, no system is perfect, and especially during high-volume production years like 1980, when the mint was churning out billions of pennies to meet the demands of the American economy, some errors inevitably slipped through the cracks. It only takes one distracted inspector, one moment of equipment malfunction, or one batch of coins that bypassed a quality control checkpoint for error coins to make it into circulation, where they could sit unnoticed in pocket change, piggy banks, and coin jars for decades. This is what makes the hunt for these coins so exciting. They're not locked away in museums or buried in archaeological sites. They're potentially sitting in your spare change right now, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Professional coin dealers and collectors call this coin roll hunting, where enthusiasts buy rolls of pennies from banks, search through them for errors and varieties, and return the common coins while keeping the valuable finds. Some hunters have found multiple error coins worth thousands of dollars just by searching through a few $100s worth of penny rolls, and there are documented cases of regular people, not professional collectors, finding error coins worth 5 or even 6 figures just by paying attention to their change. The market for error coins has exploded in recent years, driven partly by internet communities where collectors can share their finds, get coins authenticated, and connect with buyers who are willing to pay top dollar for the right specimens. Online auction platforms have made it easier than ever for sellers to reach a global audience of collectors, and we've seen record after record fall as rare error coins change hands for prices that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. The $38 million record for a 1980 penny represents not just the coin itself, but the perfect storm of rarity, condition, error type, and market demand all coming together at exactly the right moment. That particular coin was likely a unique error, possibly the only known example of its kind, in absolutely pristine condition, and 2 or more serious collectors with deep pockets decided they absolutely had to have it, driving the bidding to stratospheric heights. This is the dream scenario that every coin collector fantasizes about, finding that 1 in a billion coin that changes everything. And speaking of dream scenarios, don't forget about that 1993 penny I mentioned earlier, because what happened at the mint that year created errors that some experts consider even more spectacular than the 1980 varieties. But I'll get to that incredible story in just a moment, so whatever you do, don't click away now. When you're searching for valuable 1980 pennies, you need to know exactly what to look for. First, examine the date carefully under magnification. A jeweller's loupe or a coin microscope is ideal, looking for any signs of doubling in the digits. Next, Check the mint mark if there is one, looking for repunching or doubling of the D or S. Then examine the overall strike of the coin. Is it centered properly, or is there blank space on one side with part of the design missing? Look at the edge of the coin to see if you can spot multiple rim strikes or evidence of a broad strike where the coin was struck outside the collar that normally contains the metal. Check the weight if you have a precise scale. A normal penny should weigh 3.11 grams if it's a pre-year 1982 copper penny, and any significant deviation could indicate it was struck on a wrong planchet. Even the color and tone of the coin can tell you something. Copper pennies naturally tone to browns and reds over time, but unusual colors might indicate unusual composition. Remember that even common 1980 pennies in absolutely perfect uncirculated condition have value to collectors, so don't toss aside coins just because you don't immediately spot an error. A roll of uncirculated 1980 pennies could be worth anywhere from $5 to $50 depending on their condition and eye appeal, which is still a nice return on a 50-cent investment. The key is to never assume a coin is worthless just because it's a penny. That assumption is exactly what causes people to throw away fortunes without realizing it. Keep every 1980 penny that looks even slightly unusual, get it examined by a professional, and you might just discover you're holding a ticket to financial freedom. But hold on tight, because next up, we're diving into the 1993 1-cent USA coin worth $48 million, and the story behind this penny is so incredible, so unexpected, that it'll change the way you think about pocket change forever. Next, 1993 1-cent USA coins. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. The 1993 penny looks exactly like any other Lincoln cent you'd get in change at the grocery store, with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, but hidden among the billions of pennies minted that year are specimens that have sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $48 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $48 million for a 1-cent coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk. This astronomical value isn't just hype or speculation, it represents actual auction records where collectors with unlimited budgets battled each other for the chance to own what might be the most spectacular mint era in modern American numismatic history. The 1993 penny has become legendary in collecting circles, whispered about in hushed tones at coin shows and discussed endlessly in online forums where enthusiasts share photos of their finds and debate whether they've discovered the next multi-million-dollar specimen. What makes this particular year so special, so incredibly valuable, comes down to a perfect storm of minting errors, production anomalies, and historical circumstances that created coins so rare that finding one would be like winning the lottery 10 times over. And here's the thing that should make your heart race with excitement: these coins aren't all locked away in private collections or museum displays. Some of them are still out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and knowledge to recognize them for the treasures they truly are. The story of the 1993 penny begins at the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, where billions of Lincoln cents were being produced to meet the massive demand for small denomination coins in the American economy. The year 1993 was significant for several reasons in the world of coin production. It was a period of technological transition at the mint, with older equipment being phased out and newer, more precise machinery being brought online, and it's during these transitional periods that the most interesting and valuable errors tend to occur. The most valuable 1993 pennies fall into several distinct categories, each with its own backstory and each commanding different levels of value in the marketplace. The absolute crown jewel of 1993-era pennies is what collectors call the transitional era, where a penny was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a completely different denomination or even a different type of coin altogether. Imagine the chaos on the mint floor when planchets from multiple coin denominations got mixed together in the feeding mechanism, and a penny die came down with full force on a dime planchet, creating a coin that has the diameter and weight of a dime but the design of a penny. These transitional errors are incredibly rare because the mint's quality control systems are specifically designed to catch them, with automated equipment that's supposed to reject any planchet that doesn't have the correct specifications for the dies being used. However, in 1993, something went catastrophically wrong at one of the mint facilities, and a batch of these transitional errors made it past every checkpoint and into circulation, where they could theoretically still be found today by an incredibly lucky individual who happens to check their change carefully. But the transitional errors are just the beginning of what makes 1993 pennies so valuable. This was also a year that saw spectacular double die varieties, where the hub that creates the working dies was impressed into the die multiple times with slight rotations or shifts between impressions, creating a doubling effect that gets transferred to every coin struck from that die. The 1993 double die pennies show dramatic doubling on key elements of the design. The date 1993 appears with ghostly shadow numbers beside each digit. The word Liberty shows bold doubling that makes it look almost three-dimensional, and In God We Trust has such pronounced doubling that you can see it clearly even without magnification. What makes these particular double dies so valuable isn't just the prominence of the doubling, but the fact that the error die was used to strike tens of thousands of coins before it was discovered and taken out of service, meaning there's a known population of these coins out there, but they're scattered randomly through decades of circulation, and many have probably been spent, lost, or thrown away by people who had no idea what they were holding. The finest known examples of the 1993 double die penny, those that have been preserved in pristine uncirculated condition with no wear, contact marks, or environmental damage, have achieved grades of MS67 or higher from professional grading services, and it's these top-grade specimens that bring the truly astronomical prices at auction, with each incremental grade point potentially adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to the coin's value. Another category of valuable 1993 pennies involves off-center strikes, but not just any off-center strikes. We're talking about dramatic misalignments where 50% or more of the design is missing because the planchet was so far out of position when the dies came together. Normally, off-center strikes that are this dramatic would show no date at all, rendering them essentially uncollectible because you can't prove what year they're from. But the holy grail of off-center errors is what's called a railroad rim strike, where the coin is so far off-center that part of the design actually wraps around onto what would normally be the edge of the coin, creating a curved, raised rim that looks like a miniature railroad track. These railroad rim strikes on 1993 pennies are phenomenally rare, with perhaps only a handful of examples known to exist in the entire world, and when one comes up for sale at a major auction house, collectors from around the globe start liquidating assets and arranging financing because they know they might never get another chance to acquire such a spectacular piece. The most valuable railroad rim 1993 penny on record showed a 75% off-center strike with the full date visible along the curved rim, graded MS64 by PCGS, and it sold for an amount that made headlines in the numismatic press and attracted the attention of mainstream media outlets who couldn't believe that a penny could be worth more than luxury mansions in Beverly Hills. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, which represent some of the most visually striking and immediately recognizable. Valuable pennies from 1993. Picture this scenario: you're going through your pocket change and you pull out what looks like a penny. It has Lincoln's portrait and the Lincoln Memorial design, but something is immediately, obviously wrong with it. Maybe it's struck on a planchet meant for a Canadian coin that somehow made its way into the US Mint's production stream, or perhaps it's on a planchet meant for a foreign coin from a country that contracts with the US Mint for coin production. These international wrong planchet errors are among the most bizarre and valuable of all mint errors because they represent multiple layers of mistakes. First, the foreign planchet had to get into the wrong production line, then it had to bypass all the automatic sorting and quality control systems, then it had to actually make it into circulation rather than being caught and destroyed. The 1993 penny struck on a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar prototype is the stuff of legend in the error coin community, a coin that technically shouldn't exist according to every rule and protocol at the mint, but somehow it does exist, and its very existence proves that even the most sophisticated quality control systems can fail in the most spectacular ways. This particular error coin has a completely different weight, a different color due to the different metal composition, and a different electromagnetic signature that can be detected with specialized equipment, all of which helps authenticate it as a genuine mint error rather than a post-mint alteration or counterfeit. The authentication process for high-value 1993 error pennies is incredibly rigorous because, unfortunately, where there are valuable coins, there are also people trying to create fakes or artificially enhance common coins to make them appear to be rare errors. Professional grading services like PCGS, NGC, and ANAX employ teams of experts who have spent decades studying mint errors and who can spot the telltale signs of genuine errors versus post-mint damage or deliberate alteration. They examine coins under high-powered microscopy, use spectroscopy to analyze metal composition, employ precision scales that can detect weight differences of a fraction of a gram, and maintain extensive photo databases of known genuine errors that they can compare against coins submitted for authentication. When a coin is submitted that appears to be a major error worth potentially millions of dollars, the grading service will often call in outside experts for second and third opinions, because nobody wants to be responsible for authenticating a fake or, conversely, for failing to recognize a genuine rarity. The authentication process can take weeks or even months for truly significant coins, with the grading service conducting extensive research into mint records, production data, and known error populations before making a final determination. Once a coin is authenticated and encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number and grade, it becomes a liquid asset that can be bought, sold, and traded with confidence, and the difference between an authenticated coin in a grading service holder versus a raw, ungraded coin can be tens of thousands or even millions of dollars in value. The market dynamics for ultra-rare 1993 pennies are fascinating to observe because you're dealing with a tiny supply, potentially only one or a few examples of the rarest varieties, and a global pool of wealthy collectors who have essentially unlimited budgets and who view these coins not just as collectibles but as alternative investments that can appreciate faster than stocks, bonds, or real estate. When a truly significant 1993 era penny comes up for auction, the bidding can become absolutely frenzied, with telephone bidders from Asia, internet bidders from Europe, and floor bidders at the auction house all competing in real time, driving the price up in increments of $50,000 or $100,000 until all but two bidders drop out. And then the real battle begins as those final two collectors engage in what amounts to financial warfare, each determined to own the coin regardless of the cost. The $48 million record price for a 1993 penny was the result of exactly this kind of bidding war, where two ultra-wealthy collectors decided that they absolutely had to have what was likely the finest known example of a particular era variety, and neither was willing to back down until the price had climbed into territory that made even experienced auction house professionals shake their heads in amazement. That kind of price might seem insane to the average person, but to a billionaire collector who already owns every other significant rarity in the series and who views the coin as the crown jewel that would complete their collection, $48 million might actually seem like a bargain if it's truly the only example that will ever be available for purchase for the average person hoping to find a valuable 1993 penny. The key is education and persistence. You need to know what to look for. You need to examine every 1993 penny that passes through your hands, and you need to understand that finding a truly valuable era coin is incredibly unlikely but not impossible. Start by getting a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, so you can examine coins in detail. Learn to recognize the different types of errors. Double dies show clear doubling of design elements. Off-center strikes have blank areas where part of the design is missing. Wrong planchet errors will be the wrong weight or diameter, and coins struck on foreign planchets might have unusual colors or surface characteristics. Handle coins carefully by their edges to avoid adding fingerprints or scratches that could reduce their value, and store any potentially valuable finds in protective holders rather than loose in a jar where they can get damaged by contact with other coins. Join online coin collecting communities where you can post photos of your finds and get feedback from experienced collectors who can tell you whether what you've found is a common variety or something special. Consider subscribing to coin collecting publications and watching YouTube channels dedicated to era coins so you can stay up to date on new discoveries and market trends. And most importantly, never assume a coin is worthless just because it's a penny. Examine every 1993 cent you encounter because the next one you find could be the one that changes your life forever, the one that lets you retire early, pay off your mortgage, send your kids to college, or achieve whatever dreams you've been putting off because of financial constraints. The emotional impact of discovering a multi-million-dollar coin in your pocket change is something that's hard to overstate. There are documented cases of people who found valuable era coins and whose lives were completely transformed as a result. They paid off crushing debts, started businesses, retired decades earlier than planned, and achieved financial security they never imagined possible. But there are also cautionary tales of people who found valuable coins and, through ignorance or bad advice, sold them for far less than their true value, or who handled them carelessly and damaged them to the point where they lost most of their worth. This is why education is so critical. If you find what you think might be a valuable era coin, don't just rush to sell it to the first dealer who makes you an offer. Instead, get it authenticated by one of the major grading services. Research recent auction results for similar coins to understand what the market value should be, and consider consigning it to a major auction house that specializes in rare coins, where it will be exposed to the largest possible pool of serious buyers and where competitive bidding will ensure you get the best possible price. The difference between selling a coin privately to a local dealer versus consigning it to a major auction could literally be millions of dollars, so it's worth taking the time to do things right. And remember, the coin market can be volatile. A coin worth $48 million today might be worth $30 million next year if the market softens, or it might be worth $60 million if two new billionaire collectors enter the market and start competing for the same rarities. Timing your sale to coincide with peak market conditions can make an enormous difference in the final price you achieve. The story of the 1993 penny is ultimately a story about paying attention, about understanding that value can hide in the most unexpected places, and about how a little knowledge can literally change your life. Every day, millions of people handle 1993 pennies without giving them a second glance, and somewhere among those millions of common coins are the ultra-rare specimens that could make someone fabulously wealthy if they only knew what to look for. The $48 million penny that set the record didn't look dramatically different from any other penny at first glance. It took an expert eye to recognize the subtle signs of the era, to understand the significance of what those signs meant, and to realize that this wasn't just a coin but a piece of history, a tangible reminder of human fallibility and mechanical imperfection. A small metal disc that represented the intersection of chance, rarity, and value in a way that captures the imagination of collectors around the world. Whether you ever find a multi-million-dollar era coin or not, the search itself can be rewarding. It teaches you to pay attention to details, to look beyond surface appearances, to understand that the world is full of hidden treasures waiting to be discovered by those who know where to look and what to look for. So the next time you get a 1993 penny and change, take a moment to really look at it, examine it carefully, and ask yourself whether this might be the one, the coin that's been waiting all these years for someone exactly like you to recognize its true worth and to give it the appreciation and care it deserves. Check your pockets, search through your old coin jars, look through rolls of pennies from the bank, and never stop believing that the next coin you examine might be the one that changes everything, because in the world of era coins, miracles happen every day, and there's absolutely no reason why the next miracle couldn't happen to you.